Awesome. Okay, welcome to Is Your Digital Content ADA Compliant? Again, my name is Mara Waldrop. I am the founder and CEO of Embrace Access, and I do all things digital accessibility with a niche can't talk with a niche in marketing and communication. So that's going to be some of the focus here today. I have three buckets of things that I do at Embrace Access. So I have a training and consulting bucket. I do corporate trainings. I hold people's hands through the process of becoming accessible with their digital content. I also do multimedia production. That's a lot of what my background is in. So I do a lot of video editing and podcasts and newsletters and all things social media. And so if you want to have digital content that you know is going to be accessible, that is another area that I can help with. I also do digital audits, whether that is your website or PDFs or your onboarding materials. These are materials that I can look at and determine what accessibility barriers might be in place, as well as what you might be doing well. So before we dive into this, I think it's really important to just take a moment for all of us to acknowledge the times we're living in and the lack of normalcy that we have, and just have a moment of appreciation and acknowledgement for the people that are on the lines and making a difference in our communities. And I just want to acknowledge that because I think sometimes it's really hard to go about our day to day in such a normal way or pretend things are normal, because I don't think they are. And I thought we could potentially have a deep breath together. So if we could breathe in for 4, hold for 4, and breathe out. Thank you. I know there are a lot of ways that we can support our communities right now. I will say that ensuring that accessibility is something that's on your mind and something that's present in your business is one way that you can make a difference in your communities. As we get started, if you're able, I know there are some connection issues, and recognize that it is not preferable for some people to have your camera on. If it is available to you, I'd love to see you. I do want to have a lot of engagement for our session. I have some activities and some demos, and if you are able to engage and it's available to you, I would love to have this be a really interactive opportunity for us. I also open your questions. I'm open to all questions as we go through this. So, Leslie, if you wouldn't mind monitoring the chat, and if you want to come off mute and have questions, this can be, we have such a small group. Let's make this conversational and chat throughout the session. And I just to add, if later after this session, if you're curious or you have further questions, I'm always here to follow up and help answer those. So what we're going to talk about today, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me, how I got to this point. I want to learn a little bit more about you. I want to tell you about my friend Dave and some of the barriers that he faces with digital accessibility. We're also going to talk about what ADA compliance means for your digital content. I'm going to show you 4 common design barriers that people with disabilities face in your digital content. I'm also going to, because we are the Neurodiversity Chamber, I'm going to talk about designing for neurodivergence, which takes it to a step beyond compliance, but designing for neurodivergence is going to be really important to us, right? And then now what? After we go through all of this stuff, what's going to be next steps? So this is kind of just the outline of what we're going to talk about today. A little bit more about me. I mentioned that I have a background in media and communications, as well as e-learning development. So I was an instructional designer, incorporating a lot of different media components into training materials for a mental health organization. From there, I moved out to Denver and got my master's degree in international and intercultural communication. At that point, I graduated and really wanted to do some hands-on work And so I was really involved in a lot of different areas, including being a direct support professional for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So I was the manager of adult employment services. So I had a group of individuals that I supported in obtaining and maintaining meaningful employment, as well as managed a team that would go out into the community and help individuals that were part of our program to succeed and enjoy their jobs. From there, I started a contracting job with a communications firm. I became a content creator and a producer for several different podcasts at disability councils across the US. So they were developmental disability council in Ohio, in North Carolina, in Louisiana, and in Georgia. So then I realized that this content that I was creating, I started to understand more about digital accessibility. And I realized this the content had some barriers that the people that they were supporting in these organizations, not everyone could access what I was creating and what they were putting out on their websites and their social media. And I started to learn more and realized that there was a gap in those support organizations. And so that's how I got to this point of founding Embrace Access, and here I am with you today. So what that didn't show, that was my professional profile, but what that didn't show is that I've lived my life with a learning disability and mental health disorders. My memory recall stinks, so don't invite me to your trivia nights. You will regret it. It also didn't tell you that I come from a point of privilege, meaning my parents could afford and cared about getting me help for my disabilities. And that came in the form of getting me tested for those disabilities. It came in the form of getting me medicated, getting me therapy, getting me tutors, and I had family support throughout my childhood. And though I don't need a lot of supports now, I don't know if I would even be here today if it weren't for that privilege that I was granted in my life and the people behind me supporting me along the way. And the reason I want to share that with you is for several different reasons. One, because as we all know here, there are a lot of disabilities that are non-apparent. And I want this to be an open space where I'm going to be vulnerable with you, and I want to open the floor up for you to do the same within this group. And I also want to acknowledge that we all have a story, right? We all have needs, and some people need these digital accessibility features in order to exist, in order to get their health care, in order to have learning materials, in order to be part of the neurodiversity chamber. There's all sorts of reasons why people need these areas of digital accessibility. And again, I know everyone here has a story that's meaningful. So I talked a little bit we had some brief introductions. I would love to hear what accessibility features or practice you're doing in your business right now. This may be something physical, whether it's something, a facility in your building, maybe it is a digital. And I want to add just that I know that the chamber is already doing a lot of accessibility in terms of just support and supporting people who are neurodivergent and providing us a story and talking to other people about the importance of having different brains and different ways of thinking. I know
Right.
that there's some digital things. There's never going to be an organization that is going to be, fully accessible right off the bat. And really, it's going to be a continuation in every situation. And so I want to acknowledge you all are doing great work, and there are lots of different forms of accessibility.
Yeah.
Again, y'all are amazing. I am from the South. We use y'all a lot. That's me. I'm from North Carolina. And I just want to have this caveat. Digital accessibility is complex. There are a lot of different factors, a lot of different areas of study and of implementation. So our goal today is not to learn every single thing there is to know about digital accessibility. Our goal is to get curious, strive for progress, and keep accessibility moving forward. So my friend Dave, he has given me permission to tell his story. We met a couple of years ago. He is at a networking event, and it was actually for the Blue Bench, which is a nonprofit organization that helps to bring awareness to sexual assault in public settings, especially as it's related to drinking. So that's something he's been working on for several years. He's also a bicyclist. Recently emailed me and said he did a 40-mile bike ride. There's a particular group that he goes with out here in Denver. He also has a 14-year-old white lab guide dog named Anson. This is usually guide dogs they retire around 11 or 12. So this is pretty awesome that he still has this adorable, sweet white lab that is helping him to navigate the world. You may be able to tell that Dave is blind. He has a visual disability. And one of the things that I really want to create a connection is that David is an academic counselor at the University of Denver, meaning that he is supporting students who are neurodivergent. ADHD, dyslexia, learning disabilities, autism. He is there to help them succeed in ways that are going to be most meaningful for them. And so he frequently works with these incoming freshmen who maybe it's their first time away from home. They're trying to navigate a world where they don't have those supports. And he's there to be a part of that journey. And I think that Dave could be any one of us because we are all here to be supporting people with neurodivergence, whether you are someone with neurodivergence or whether you are supporting them in your work. This is someone who is local, who is doing the similar to same work that we are doing. He could be any one of us. Dave, does he use any technology or tools to help him do things? His response, he uses screen readers. So there are two of the biggest screen reader names are NVDA and JAWS. NVDA is a free screen reading software that works on Windows. You can download it for free. I would encourage you all to download it and start learning the commands to see what that experience is like. I'm not going to do it here today. But it is something that's really important to start understanding that experience. He also uses voiceover and speech to text on his iPhone. He also uses it's a machine called the Kurzweil 100. Is a scan and read software, and it works with this Plus Tech optic book scanner. So these are things that help him to scan his mail, to read instructions on food that's packaged in boxes, and to do other household tasks. He also uses a Braille reader, which he didn't learn until his mid-20s, which I think is interesting that Braille, I think, is just now starting to make a comeback, but historically, in the last couple of decades, it has been a much less common way to consume material. And Dave also has his doctorate degree. And as he was doing his dissertation, he came across books that they were either out of print or for whatever reason weren't available in electronic formats. And so he utilized these different tools to help him get through that process and to earn his PhD. I asked Dave, what are some things that make it harder for you to take part in everyday life or to feel included? Dave's response, digital accessibility is nearly always an afterthought. This means I routinely have to invest much more time and effort to try to navigate digital portals, software, and the like. I routinely encounter digital platforms that are, at best, marginally compatible with screen reading software. The impact on me is that I have not applied for promotions because supervision is an essential function and the performance management systems have been entirely inaccessible for nearly a decade. So I ask you, Do you think this is ADA compliant? No. Bonnie's shaking her head. No, no, it is not. And we're going to talk about it. So, what does it mean? What is ADA compliance for digital content? When we think about the ADA, we frequently are thinking about physical access, whether it's the ramps that go into buildings or elevators that are functional, or maybe it's the braille that we notice at the light rail stations. But when we think of digital, we're going to talk about more what that means. Okay, so I have a little activity for us. What I'd like you to do, I'm going to play a video. And so I believe everyone here is sighted. And so those who are, please close your eyes or look completely away from your screen. I'm going to play this video and I want you to pay close attention to the information that you learn in the video. And you can jot down physical or mental notes.
I feel like I can impact.
All right. Can you all hear it? Yeah, Bonnie? Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to play the first 2 minutes of this video.
I feel like I can impact more if I educate myself and also understand that there's more ways to deal with addiction than what I've known. My name is Jeannie. I am currently studying the addiction recovery program. I was recently working at a sober living for the last 2 years, but I decided to go back so I can get out of the operations piece and go more into the counseling piece of it. So I have had some stuff in my own particular life with addiction. For my own personal story, it was a lot easier for me to relate to somebody that was relatable. Think about like Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. Those are just regular people helping other people. It's just easier for us to ask for help and give it as well when we know that there's been other people that have walked the walk.
One thing I love about our field is we often take people with lived experience, people who have been there and done that. Working in our field, it can be triggering, it can be tough. People do need to know their biases. They also need to know where they stand in their mental health, their behavioral health, their emotional intelligence.
I still, to this day, struggle. It could be gambling. It could be my behaviors in regards to like my feeling inadequate and not feeling enough for whatever situation it is that makes me want to go backwards. And I think about those pieces and I wanted to be able to project like a different type of program for the next person coming in.
When you come in every day, there is an underlying theme of today's going to be better than yesterday. We're not looking for perfection. We're not looking for them to be perfect when they leave, but we're looking for them to understand progress and celebrate the small successes.
Right. I'm going to pause there and let's talk about it. What do you know, and what are some gaps? What are some things that you felt like this information isn't apparent? Let's start with what we know. What did you learn from the video?
I'm sorry, my boss was pinging me and I was very distracted. So somebody else jump in for me. Sorry about that.
Okay, that's all right.
It was something about an addiction program, and Jeannie was talking at the beginning. I'm not sure who the other speaker was.
Yep, okay. We got Jeannie, and we got something about addiction. Anything? I know Charles. Leslie, did you notice anything?
She just said that she struggles every single day. It never goes away for her.
Yeah, okay. All right, let's watch the same video, and this time we are going to... You can look at it, look at the screen, and let's see what information that you didn't know before that you learned from this time around.
I really feel like I can impact more if I educate myself and also understand that there's more ways to deal with addiction than
I think
what I know.
you need to share your screen.
Oh, sorry, thanks.
Yeah, no worries.
Can you see the video now?
Impact more if I educate myself and also understand that there's more ways to deal with addiction than what I've known. My name is Jeannie. I am currently studying the addiction recovery program. I was recently working at a sober living for the last 2 years, but I decided to go back so I can get out of the operations piece and go more into the counseling piece of it. So I have had some stuff in my own particular life with addiction. For my own personal story, it was a lot easier for me to relate to somebody that was relatable. You think about like Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. Those are just regular people helping other people. It's just easier for us to ask for help and give it as well when we know that there's been other people that have walked the walk.
One thing I love about our field is we often take people with lived experience, people who have been there and done that. Working in our field, it can be triggering, it can be tough. People do need to know their biases. They also need to know where they stand in their mental health, their behavioral health, their emotional intelligence.
I still, to this day, struggle. It could be gambling. It could be my behaviors in regards to like my feeling inadequate and not feeling enough for whatever situation it is that makes me want to go backwards. And I think about those pieces and I want to be able to project like a different type of program for the next person coming in.
When you come in every day, there is an underlying theme of today's going to be better than yesterday. We're not looking for perfection. We're not looking for them to be perfect when they leave, but we're looking for them to understand progress and celebrate the small successes.
All right. Yeah, is this is a community college program. We had no context for that. It was some kind of program about addiction. And that was as far as we could get with the information that we were given. And so the reason that I wanted to show this is really to just get you thinking about what information needs to be presented in different ways so that everybody, no matter their disability, can be able to understand and engage with your content. It's also just good business, right? Like if somebody like Dave, who is visually impaired, trying to go to community college and to go into this particular program, but he doesn't know the tuition. He doesn't know where this video is coming from. He doesn't know the key players. And so there are a lot of questions that we can start to consider as we're considering our content and we're creating our content for businesses. Get back to my presenting. Okay, so some things that we wouldn't have known. Demographics. Who's there and what's important about them? Is race, ethnicity, age, are these important factors to understand in who is presenting in this video? Is the information that's provided, does it help the viewer understand the story, the message, or the lived experience? And is it relevant to the person featured? Tone and emotion. What visual elements convey the tone, the mood, the emotional context? There was some kind of corporate music in the background that creates, like, if you're going to anywhere and you're volunteering your time and your energy and your money, you want to know that there's going to be a kind of connection, right? You want to know that you're going to connect with, whether it's the teacher in the classroom, whether it's the people in the group, whatever it might be. That human connection is going to be really important to learning, to all things when it comes to your content. So some other questions to consider. How would you describe these moments clearly and respectfully? What environmental characteristics contribute meaningfully to the scene or reinforce a narrative? Leslie, you hit the nail on the head with that. And even going so deep as to understanding scene transitions. So if there is and sometimes this kind of information can a visual element, but it's not really important to the storytelling. So if it doesn't add to the story, it doesn't need to be included in your content. So if it's just a pan of a room, let's say it's a classroom, and it's going from, it's showing what's on the walls, how many desks are in the room, what the projection looks like. That might be something that's important to include, to talk about the panning across the room to show all the different elements that are happening. So are there any stylistic choices like fades, cuts, or changes in the music or tone that are worth noting? There were Bonnie, you mentioned some of the graphics that showed up. Those were really important information. I mean, it had the tuition on there. It had some different percentages of the population, of graduates. Those were, and it also had some particular colors that maybe those were colors that were part of of their branding. We don't really know, right? But those are all things that we want to consider as we're, again, looking at our content. So I wanted to do this activity because I want to instill a mindset for digital inclusion because it is the best way to achieve compliance. So let's talk about ADA compliance. The first thing that we all know, we all love the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. There's a lot that goes into these different pieces of legislation. And just two things that I want to note are Title II and Title III of the ADA. Title II applies to state and local government entities. It requires that there is equal access to programs, services, and activities. And starting this April 2026, this will include a very specific section about digital content. So websites, documents, videos, and online services. This applies to everything from your public libraries to your local schools to that community college system. When we talk about Title III, that is applied to private businesses and public accommodations. So that could be anything from retail to restaurants, hotels, healthcare, as well as nonprofits. So there's not specific language that says that the digital content must be accessible. It does say that while frequently there are lawsuits that have been ruled on the side to conclude that digital accessibility is part of this public accommodation, even without those explicit regulations. So there are a lot of lawsuits that have been happening with Title III. So just a couple of things to note. This is not meant to scare you. It's just meant to show that this is something that's happening in our world and in our disability community. So the Title III lawsuits increased by 40% in 2025 compared to 2024. In January to July of 2025, there were 22.6% of the total filings targeted websites that had accessibility widgets or overlays installed. Has anyone heard of Accessibility or seen a small icon on a website that frequently will have either a person standing with their arms and legs outstretched, or it may be a symbol of someone sitting in a wheelchair? Have you come across a website? Yeah, Bonnie's shaking her head, yes. So that's what we call a widget or an overlay. And so the claim for this product is that it will make you ADA compliant and that it will solve all things for people with disabilities. But in reality, people with disabilities already have the technology that they need to navigate a site. And so to have something extra, one, you have to find it, right? And two, it ends up being more difficult to navigate in a lot of cases, especially with screen readers. So the FTC recently reached a $1 million settlement with Accessibility for misleading businesses about the capabilities, meaning that it was not ADA compliant despite it saying that it is. My guess is that they are making enough money to cover those lawsuits that are coming at them and are not being required to change what they're saying about themselves. And so I just think they're making more money than they're needing to spend on these lawsuits. And so they're not needing to change anything. But these are actually a significant problem despite what they will tell you on their website. So just an FYI for your information, the majority of lawsuits that have been filed based on ADA have been filed against e-commerce sites. So it's much less common for a nonprofit to experience a lawsuit, but major retailers have been through this. So I'm curious, do you all have any guesses why these lawsuits have increased so much in 2025 compared to 2024? people are becoming more aware that their inaccessibility of whatever they're trying to consume is they can do something about it, right? And the other part of this is AI tools have enabled people who can't afford legal representation to draft and file their own complaints. So I thought that was really interesting. They don't need to hire a lawyer. They can create their own materials and submit it to a court to try to make their case. In Colorado, I love our state. We had the first digital accessibility state law, HB 211110. It became effective July 1st of 2024. And like that Title II of the ADA, it requires state and local governments to meet content via WCAG 2.1 AA standards. We're going to talk about that in a second. It applies to websites, documents, media, and applications. And inaccessible digital content is now considered a civil rights violation in our state. All right, let's talk about WCAG, which stands for the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. WCAG is the international standard for digital accessibility. It was created by people with disabilities, and it defines each element that's required for digital accessibility. So it will outline what's required for your video in order for it to be accessible. It requires what features you need to have on your website in order for it to be accessible. So there's a lot of functionality, there's a lot of design components, and this has been created by the Web Accessibility Initiative 3C. WCAG has, industries love acronyms. So here we have the WCAG principles, which spell out. So they are perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. I'm going to go into that a little bit more. And there are 3 levels of accessibility from 1A to AAA. So I prefer plain language. And I like things to be explained a little bit more deeply. So when I think about POUR, P-O-U-R, I like to think about what questions to ask in order to achieve these standards. So when I think of perceivable, the question I ask is, can everyone take in the information regardless of their senses or disabilities? Operable, can everyone use and move through the interface even if they use assistive technology? Is it easy to understand what things mean and what will happen next? And is it robust? Does the content and code consistently work with a lot of different technologies, including assistive technologies? So that might be the screen readers that Dave uses. It might be eyesight technology, if you all have ever come across that. It may be puff and sip that people use in order to navigate through web pages. A couple other elements we have here are privacy. Can everyone keep their information confidential? Meaning, does Dave have to ask someone to help him to get into his bank information? Is he going to have to provide his username, his password, maybe his social security number to someone else in order to access his own private information? That's inaccessible. Independent. Can everyone access the content without the help of another person? And is it easy to use? Is it simple and usable by everyone? Now we're here at the 4 common accessibility barriers, and this is not legal advice. These are 4 common elements that I have identified that are easy to adjust today in your digital content. Number 1 is color contrast. So here you'll see a graph or a table on our left. We have text color, and then on the across the top we have our background color, and we have everything from all the colors of the rainbow, and they have imposed the text in different colors on top of these different backgrounds. And as you can see, some of these are really difficult to read, while some of them are pretty easy to read. So let's look at this black column. We have almost everything is easy to see in that color contrast, except for black on black, obviously. And then that dark gray on a black background can be really difficult to see. And there are 8% of men who are colorblind. 0.5% of women are colorblind. So it's a pretty significant number. And I wanted to show you, this is an interesting kind of simulator that I found for color blindness. And it talks about the different kinds of color blindness. Can you still see this colorblindness.com? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So we have everything from, I mean, and we're getting technical here with the medical diagnosis, but also what the eye perceives differently. We can actually click on some of these things, and you can upload your own images to this, which is kind of cool. So if you want to know what your logo looks like, if you want to know what the images you're using on your website look like, you can plug those in and see what it looks like. So here we have a red week view. So it's taking a lot of that red color out of the image. Green week is similar. Blue week, red blind, they don't see red at all. Green blind, blue blind, monochrome, and blue cone monochromacy. So this is an interesting tool. It's we're never going to, if you're not colorblind, you're never going to fully know what it's like to be colorblind. But this is a way to start and to recognize the different ways that people perceive color and content. I forgot to add, so there's some science behind this, and it is about the foreground color versus the background color. And it is measuring the luminance or the brightness of the color. So if something is like black has 0 luminance. So if you put colors with a high luminance, then it's going to be easier to see. So there is a ratio that's required. And this is a WCAG requirement. It is WCAG 1.4.3. And the minimum contrast in level AA standards, to meet those standards, the visual presentation of text and images of text has a contrast ratio of at least 4.5 to 1 for normal text and 3 to 1 for large text, meaning that the foreground color has to have at least 4.5 times the luminance as the background color. Does that make sense? Okay. Color contrast. So this is a logo that I created recently for the Disability Action Network of North Carolina. And I thought I know enough about color to recognize what is going to pass the ratio and what's going to fail with this standards. But I decided after I had already created the logo to just go and check just to make sure. Turns out there were 2 colors in this design that did not pass the color contrast ratio requirement. This is a tool I really want you all to use, and I will send a follow-up with some of these tools that we look at today. We're gonna use our WebAIM color contrast checker. And what colors do you see in this image that you think may be questionable, might not pass this color test? We can just pick one to test it.
The purple?
Purple, which purple?
The very top tip.
The very top, the like pinkish color?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's test it out. All right, so here we have our color contrast checker. And you'll see that in our foreground, we have our foreground and our background, and we have our color contrast ratio at the bottom. So if we click on this box of color, it says color picker, and I'm going to use the eyedropper tool right here, and I'm just going to go over and check. I want to get to what I perceive to be the lightest point of the color combination. So I'm going to click on it. I know my background is white here, so I'm not going to change that, and I'm going to check it out. So this is really interesting. If we're looking at what this is coming out with, it's saying that with WCAG and AAA, if we're using this color for normal text, it fails the test. If we're using it for large text, it does pass the AA standard. It fails the AAA standard. But this is a graphical object. This is, and the standard we have here is WCAG AA. And we see that as a graphical object, this passes, meaning the luminance, the brightness of that color is more able to be perceived in a graphical context and not able to be perceived in a textual context. So what I did find out is this teal here, which I was so sure passed, it failed every single one. Yeah. So in a cool way that you can make these adjustments is just to look at this lightness here, and you can push it to the point until you see on the bottom where it says pass. And again, since this is a graphical object, I've achieved this 3.02 to 1 contrast ratio, which passes the test for WCAG AA graphical objects. The other one, just for funsies, this lighter green. So I had to say, as you can see, that failed all the tests as well. So that was another one that I had to adjust. And the interesting thing, I put these two side by side. The bottom one is the one that I adjusted the colors for. The top one is the original that was not adjusted. So that it's very subtle, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. There's not too much difference.
Yeah.
It's like a little bit bolder.
Yeah.
Darker, but yeah.
So the conclusion here is, even in the accessibility field, we think we know, and we don't until we test it. So when in doubt, test it out. Next, I want to talk about alt text. And Chelsea mentioned, or Bonnie mentioned, using image descriptions in your social media. So that is, that's amazing. That is absolutely an important component of accessibility in content. So this is WCAG 1.1.1, non-text content level A. It says that all non-text content that is presented to a user must have text alternative that serves the equivalent purpose, meaning that if there is an image, if there is a table, whatever graphical element you might have in your content, it has to have a description. And we need to be able to describe it in a way that someone who cannot see the image will be able to understand it equally. And again, there's a lot of nuance here. There's a lot of subjectivity in terms of what's going to be most important. So if you were to describe this image to someone who can't see it, what would you say?
I would describe kind of the overlapping arrows and what colors, and then I would say the text reads and like directly quote it.
Love it. That's awesome. And I am a big fan of making life easier, and you can plug your images into AI and it will come out with an image description for you or an alternative text to include. And so I put this into AI and it came back with Disability Action Network North NC logo with geometric shapes in teal, blue, and purple, forming a forward pointing arrow, suggesting forward momentum and progress, and to the left of the organization name in black text. The wording is a little bit funny. I would probably adjust that a little bit more in my manual check. We always do a manual check for these things. And the other thing I will add, that this is really great for SEO. So you get to include the name of your organization again, an extra time in your image description. So it's going to benefit not only the person with a disability, but the business itself in terms of its online presence. So the key principle here is to describe what's relevant to the user's needs in that specific context, not every visual detail for its own sake. So it may not say the purple and green arrow has a gradient that transitions subtly in the middle, right? That might be a little too much, but we can mention there's gradients, we can mention the colors, but do it in a strategic way to make it easy to understand, easy to read. Number 3 on our common accessibility barriers are descriptive hyperlinks. This is a WCAG 2.4.4 rule. The link purpose, level A, it says that the purpose of each link can be determined from the link text alone or from the link text together with its programmatically determined link context. That's a jumble, but essentially we need to be able to know what the link is by the words in the link itself. And this is, so a screen reader, NVDA or JAWS, like Dave uses in his day-to-day, is it offers a couple of ways to consume content. And one of those ways is to generate a list of links to determine the content of a page. So imagine if you are skimming an image or a website, scanning through it, trying to find just information that you need, and all you see is click here, learn more, click here, click here. It doesn't tell you anything, right? So to include the hyperlink in the text of what that actually is, we can see here are the examples. Check out our end of year report. We have end of year report. It tells us exactly what that is. And you can actually add, if it's a PDF, it can be helpful for the user to put a parentheses around it and say PDF download. That's a level AAA, but this will suffice for level AA, or download the accessibility guide. We know exactly what that is, right? There's no question about what we're going to be accessing in that hyperlink.
Mara, is that just hyperlinks, or like are you talking about like our newsletter or website where it says like there's a button, you know?
So buttons also apply. It's a little bit different, but yes, buttons should also indicate where they're going.
Okay.
Number 4, captions. WCAG 1.2.2. Captions are provided for all pre-recorded audio content in synchronized media. Captions are essential for anyone who is deaf or hard of hearing to be able to understand what is happening in your content. And as most accessibility features are, it benefits everyone. Have you ever been in a public place and you're scrolling through social media, you get to a video and there's no captions and you just skip over it, right? So your business is going to benefit from being able to read what's on the screen. Again, essential for people with disabilities and beneficial to people without disabilities. I want to, because we are the Neurodiversity Chamber, I want to talk a little bit about designing for neurodivergence. This is not going to be a WCAG lesson in this next section, but it's something that I want to start to bring awareness of. What I'm going to do here, I want to, and this is an image. I'm going to show you the image here next, but what I want you to think about as I go to this next image is, where does your eye go first? Where does it go second, third, and fourth? And when you know what the product is, and when you know what the brand is, I'd like for you to raise your hand. And that could be, if you want to do it virtually, if you want to do it physically, whatever, indicate that you have figured out what the product is, okay? All right, here we go. Okay, Bonnie, you figured it out. Tell us what you see.
I think it's for Ally by Elementor in the bottom left, but it's definitely not what I saw first. And my eyes were scanning all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I really saw like the middle. The website link in the middle.
Yep, absolutely. What was the second thing you saw?
I'm a bigger headline.
Read from left to right, right? And the brightest thing that's in the middle of the page is this search bar. And what was the third thing?
Then I think it was Shop Now, kind of just like, again, like kind of reading in order. So it was like bright and then reading, and then I was like, that's not it still. And so then it was the bottom and I was like, oh, there it is.
Yep. The irony of this being a accessibility feature or accessibility product is just made me laugh when I came across it because one, it does not, there's no way I can see that it is not going to pass the color contrast standards with this pink, the white foreground and the pink background. I know that won't pass. So we have this, it's Ally Web Accessibility and Usability plugin. I didn't realize it was a plugin. I didn't realize it was WordPress till I had done a full circle around this bottom part of the image. So I didn't know what the brand was. I didn't know what the product was for a good 15 seconds before I figured it out. So now I'm going to show you another example, and I want you to raise your hand when you figure out what it is. What did you see first?
Accessibility. And then my eyes kind of scanned up to like the website logo in the top left too. And then I think I was kind of second guessing what it was, so I kind of like scanned like the information at the bottom, but then I was like, no, it's like wanting to provide accessibility for websites, like it said at the beginning.
Yeah, that first, the heading, the first thing, the biggest thing we see is accessibility. That at least gives us a hint as to what it is, as opposed to having no idea what's happening here. So when we're designing for neurodivergence, we want to avoid cognitive overload. That first example is so overwhelming. I did not enjoy looking at it. In our second example, we saw that using size to indicate a hierarchy of where you want your eye to go on a page can be really helpful. We're also looking at the luminance or brightness, the contrast that can bring attention. When I'm looking at this example, my eye goes, as we talked about, to this middle section, and I see the icons next. So my eye goes kind of in a spiral of what's happening in these icons because they are the brightest thing on the screen but they don't tell me what they are. Right? It doesn't tell me what the product is. It's just these bright kind of images that don't tell the story. Simplicity equals better communication. One thing that I see a lot with clients that I work with is trying to squeeze everything onto your website's homepage. The best practice in designing for neurodivergence is to keep things simple, to use some of those keywords, and then you can elaborate in other sections. But to have something that is skimmable, that if you can look at something and immediately know what it is without having to read a ton of information, it's going to be better for the person who's neurodivergent, and it is going to be good for your brand because you're going to be able to identify things a lot quicker, and it's just good business. So avoiding those large areas of text, and then bullet points are always great to help visualize or visually organize information. Okay, so we've gone through a lot of stuff, and now that I've given you all this information, we've talked about a lot of things. Now what? I want to, and I'm not going to give you a direct answer, I'm going to give you a metaphor. So, I have a 3-year-old, and I recently checked out this book from the library. It's called Also an Octopus. And it is, the first page, it says, every story starts the same way, with nothing. And the goal of this octopus, so it starts off, and the book talks about how to develop characters. So the character that they land on is this octopus. And then they decide that they have a conflict. And the conflict is that the octopus wants to build a totally awesome purple spaceship capable of intergalactic travel. But the problem is the octopus doesn't know how to build a spaceship and is not qualified. You see here on this page, he's trying to build a spaceship out of soda cans and glue and string and umbrella and glitter and waffles. And he acknowledges himself that he is not really qualified to build a spaceship. But it does smell like waffles, so he's happy about that, which I can understand. So to solve this problem, what does he do next? He goes to another character that they've come up with, who is the bunny rabbit, who the octopus acknowledges is adorable, but is not a rocket scientist. And so the bunny tries to build a a, a rocket ship out of carrots, and they realizes that it just turns into a big mess, and the octopus is sad. He leaves, and they don't know what to do next. One thing I didn't tell you is the octopus also plays the ukulele. When he was very sad when he couldn't build this spaceship, so he goes out and he starts playing his ukulele, and people in this public place all start to come and listen to him, and then a whole group brings their instruments and they join in. Turns out this whole group that joined in to play in his band was a group of rocket scientists. And so they were able to help him build his totally awesome purple rocket ship that is capable of intergalactic travel. It looks like they also were able to get the bunny off the ground with his carrot rocket ship. So the conclusion is that that is up to you. When one story ends, it's making room for another story to begin. And your accessibility journey is going to be a story that you get to write yourself. You get to come up with who your characters will be. You will recognize what challenges you need to overcome in your own practices, and you will need to figure out what it takes to meet your goals. So, I will conclude with that, and I am here to connect with you. My website is here, embraceaccess.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. There's some QR codes here. One thing that I offer businesses, if you are interested in exploring what is happening in your website in terms of accessibility, I offer a free 10 to 15 minute mini audit that allows you to kind of see what's going on and see what you can do to help enhance it and try to eliminate some of those accessibility barriers. Thank you. Any questions?
Mara, that was so awesome. So much information and so many things were like, oh my God, we have to start doing this. We have to start doing this. And I think that's great to have that and to know that there's things that we can immediately apply in our day to day.
Thanks, Leslie. Bonnie, it looks like you're the only one left.
I guess one question I have is like when it comes to compliance, and like I agree with Leslie, there's things where it's like, oh, I could be doing like this differently, but like with the internet and like things living on the internet digitally, for compliance, is it okay to start and like move forward, or do I need to go back into like social media and make sure everything is like up to standards?
I would say it's best to start with where you are and move forward. There are some things like your website is your living, breathing brand, it's your identity, right? And so a lot of businesses, when they're starting their accessibility, the first thing they do is an audit of their materials. And so sometimes if your website is simpler, you have maybe a few graphics, text that explains who you are and what you do. That's going to be a lot easier to remediate than if you have portals that you have to access to get into your learning materials, for example, or if you have tables or big charts that talk about the financial growth of your business, or if you have PDFs, like PDFs are a big thing that a lot of bigger businesses will have flyers that are PDFs. They'll have their end of year reports that are in PDF formats. So in those cases, those are things I would say that anything that's on your website should be remediated to be accessible. But when it comes to things like social media and your content, whether it's your videos, whether it's your newsletters, I would say don't go backwards with those. Just start from where you are and implement the things you learn going forward.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks for this presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I loved a lot of the tools that you did, Mara, and I still have so many other questions. And what do we do with this? And I'm sure that's part of like your consulting and how you help others, right?
Yeah. For sure. Yes, I will be your metaphorical rocket scientist and help you build your spaceship.
Would also just love to learn more from you. I know you had mentioned like PDFs, fillable forms, any of that like things. And it's like, when we have meetings, then, or even this presentation, should we always have the captions on? Like, I'm just like, I have all these follow-up questions.
Yeah, yeah. And those are great questions. PDFs are a beast with accessibility. I actually just came across a incredible tool that can remediate your like 99% remediate your PDFs. And then you kind of just manual everything, we have to do manual check before we release anything. Um, a really important part of accessibility, but yeah, it's a really great tool for PDF, so I can send you that as well. And then in terms of captions on content or on even on these live presentations, absolutely there should always be an option. And actually, to meet WCAG criteria for a live presentation, these automated captions are not sufficient. That was something, it does require CART, CART, which I'm blanking on what that acronym stands for, but it is somebody who's providing live captions in a in a webinar or a workshop like this.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. We have 6 other people who requested to have your presentation after, so that's really great. And hopefully we can do this again in March.
Sounds great. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you,
Thank you. This is
Bonnie.
absolutely wonderful. Thanks, Bonnie.